The B Plus Recap Countdown.
Hey, how's it going, everybody? It's B Plus, and welcome to yet another recap countdown. If this is your first time checking out a recap countdown and listening to one of these, this is just my unique way of doing an album review. So today we're going to be taking a look at Trip Lee's latest project entitled The End. Now, we know that Trip Lee is one of those initial members of Reach Records, so we know that he's a legend in this space, but at the same time, we know that we have not heard much from him since about 2016 when he released an EP entitled The Waiting Room. So now here we are in 2022, and Trip Lee is dropping some new music. And I don't know about you guys, but I always get a little bit nervous when one of our legends is coming out with a project and we haven't heard from him in a while, just because hip hop is always evolving, it's always changing, there's always these new waves, and we just don't know if these legends are going to come back and try to dabble in a little bit of those new things, or if they're just going to stick to their guns and do what they normally do. So I was really excited to hear about this Trip Lee project, and we got to stick around to the end to find out how I feel about this project. But let's go ahead and get into this recap countdown really quickly. Here's what I do. I take a look at my 5 favorite bars, my 4 favorite beats, my 3 favorite tracks, my 2 favorite features, and I'll round everything out with one final recap. So without any further ado, let's get into this review.
5 bars.
I know some churches are filled with villains, living for them dollar bills they stealing. I wish you see all the men and women really living by what his will's revealing. I wish nobody was tricked into thinking Jesus is what Republicans be feeling. I'm glad all my stuff, it don't define me, it feel like it do. And I know it's a lie, but it feel like it's true. But I need his eyes to get in my view, cause all I can see is blue. Dreaming, I be lying if I said I never felt like getting mine. Cause the kind of road I'm walking ain't for soft ones, it's a climb, it's a crime. To leave a feast, chasing filthy swine. When I die, need nutrition for my system and my mind. Many times, can't just be big, need muggle. They treat their life like promo. Don't shake my hands like my photo. They seem caught with the soul go slow. Running these streets where the logos grow. Blue check, that's Jesse. That's burden's heavy, but he said, gimme. Hey, this joke so easy. This water flow like Fiji. Was blind, it was one of Stevie's. He's the key to life, leave me. Thank God.
Okay, it's B Plus. Welcome back. Let's talk about my 5 favorite bars off of this project. Kicking things off with Supernatural. Now, I spent a number of years in and around the megachurch culture. It has its issues. There's documentaries always coming out exposing this, exposing that, and all that is good and well. But at the same time, let's not lose the fact that there are a lot of churches, there are a lot of pastors out there that are doing things the right way. They are really shepherding their flock the way God has intended it to. So I enjoyed that bar. Moving on to Dreaming. Now, Trip Lee has always been very vocal about his health issues, and in this bar he's just kind of talking about how he is not the sum total of all those issues. He's more than his sickness. And on a spiritual note, I really feel like that kind of resonates as well, just because a lot of times life can try to tell us that we are our sin issues, we are our hang-ups, we are our shortcomings, but that's not the case. We are more than that, because that's what the cross says. So moving on to number 3, You Got It. I like it just because it was just a nice way of saying that the faith is not for the faint at heart. It's a struggle, it's a grind. So enjoy that. So moving on to number 2, All Mine. Now, I really like the imagery that this bar just kind of set up. Just kind of imagine yourself being like in a big city like New York or Las Vegas, with a lot of billboards, a whole lot of different signs and brands that people are trying to promote you to buy into. And I kind of think that that's how life is. A lot of times people are trying to portray these images, so they're just a bunch of logos. They're trying to portray themselves through how they look, how much money they have, the job they have, the status, the spouse they may have, or things like that. So there's all these people that you're walking by, but they're also just kind of like logos and brands that they're trying to sell to you. So I really like that line there. I thought that was really clever. And then lastly, Call It Life. I like that line just because he said Wonder Stevie, a reference to Stevie Wonder, but then the next line he had was The Key to Life, which is one of Stevie Wonder's studio albums that was released like in the 70s, way before I was born. So I really like that callback to show that he's a student of music in general. So there were my 5 favorite bars. Let's move over to my 4 favorite beats.
4 beats.
Oh girl, could it be anyone like you in this world? I died. Everybody wanna brag back to bed, talking about a good thing. I find it. Always at your pace, how you run your race, putting in that mileage. I don't know if you know it. I just want you to know it. Don't sell my gold, got in my witness. Roll my cases closed, got in my witness. I ain't got
Okay, now let's talk about my 4 favorite beats off of this project. Now, when I first got my chance to sit down and listen to this project, put on my nice over-ear headphones, the first thing I did when I got finished was I went to Twitter and I just gave a shout out to all the producers that were on this project just because sonically it just sounded wonderful. So the shout outs went out to 1995, Juice Bangers, Enzo, Michelle, and then I was pleasantly surprised to hear that Trip Lee tried his hand at production on this project. Not only did he try it, I thought he did a wonderful job. I think I was watching an interview with Rapzilla done by Luke DiMarzio, and he was just talking about how over the quarantine, or Trip Lee was talking about over quarantine, how he just kind of started trying his hand at doing production, and he doesn't even play any instruments, but he started trying his hand at it. Thought he did a wonderful job. He teamed up with Michelle largely on this project, and here you have it, a very sonically cohesive project. So I want to give a shout out to my 4 favorite beats on this project, and that goes to Know It, that was number 4, number 3 was Witness, number 2 was Put Your Weapon Down, and number 1, my favorite piece of production on this project, was Right Out the Gate. So next up, let's talk about my 3 favorite tracks.
3 favorites.
Be in the shit when I'm on. I've been in my zone. The ceiling is gone. I'm sick as the feeling is on. Tell them to drill it is down. Hey, still. Told them it's not no drill. They feel like I'm not for real. Feeling glad he got that wheel. Hey, yo. You can bring whole thing. Won't feel the danger. Hey, yo. These holy ghost things. From it we came up. Okay. I'm on the road. Got me thinking I go, but I know all the mothers leave us in the cold. I don't want to gain the world and lose my soul. So where else can I go? You got it. You got it. You got it. Where else can I go? You got it. You got it. You got it. Got it.
I'm allergic to the small time. I've been out here living like it's all mine.
Till I'm face down, flatline, no sign. Chasing that shine like that's mine. Ace ain't taking no halftime. Till I'm face down, flatline, no sign. Chasing that shine like that's mine. Hey bro, click below to subscribe. I need it, I'm hollow inside. Come feed me with followers.
Okay, it's B+. Let's talk about my 3 favorite tracks off of this project. Now, number 3, I have Stone. I thought this was the perfect single to release. I believe this was the third and final single before this project came out. There was a visual that went along with it, and I thought it was just a perfect single to get everybody hyped for this project. He had 2 previous singles, I believe. There was Supernatural and You Got It. And this one just really was like a classic anthem song for Trip Lee, just talking about how his faith is anchored in God. So and it's all set in stone. So that was my 3rd favorite song off of this project. My 2nd favorite song was also another single, You Got It. A lot of people may know this song just because it was used for NFL Shop when they were just kind of promoting some of their new apparel. So it was all over on Sundays being played. So I enjoyed that one, but the biblical story that goes along with it, in the Gospels, where it talks about how Jesus was preaching the word. A lot of disciples turned and walked away. Jesus turned to the 12 and said, are you guys going to go too? And Peter famously said, where else can we go? So so this is like a nod to that story there in the gospel. So that was my 2nd favorite. And lastly, my favorite on this entire project, after naming 2 singles, my favorite song on this project is a deep cut off of the album, and it goes by the name of All Mine. Now, for you guys who have been rocking with me for a little while, you are not surprised or shocked that one of my favorite songs off of any project is one of the deep album cuts, but I really enjoyed the theme of this song. It really just kind of speaks to our me-centered society nowadays. We're always telling people to come subscribe to our page, come follow us on this social media platform. We're also talking about our latest fashion or what we have going on, but if you're not careful, you can look up and you can really start thinking that this life is all about you, and you really start thinking that it's all mine. But if you kind of live with that mindset, you're often going to be disappointed. You're also going to be left wanting more. So really like the theme of that song, like I said before. And Taylor Hill, he definitely killed his feature on this song. And speaking of features, let's go ahead and get into my 2 favorite features off of this project.
2 features.
Got it grown. I'm where I belong. So tell them you can play this when I'm gone. Who cares if I'm gone? I'm just headed home. So tell them you can play this when I'm gone. Don't cry to this song. I'm where I belong.
did my best undo each day of wave goodbye, brand new. My life is you. No, 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 I gave it up to get it back.
Hey, and welcome back to this recap countdown. We're now taking a look at my 2 favorite features off of this latest project by Trip Lee entitled The End. And now it would have been super easy for me just to pick 2 of his label mates like What Up RG and Wande and call that my 2 favorite features off of this project. And it would have been just as easy for me just to pick KB, who is definitely one of the hottest right now in the CHH space, and call that my favorite feature. But what I decided to do was to take a look at a couple singers off of this project, starting things off with Abe Parker, who was on Homecoming. Now, this is one of those songs that after listening to the project, this was one of the melodies that I was humming the most after I got done listening to the project. So shout out to Abe Parker. I thought that he was a good compliment to Trip Lee's voice. And then for my first favorite feature on this project, I went with Desi Raines, who was on Gave It Up. Now, it's not very often that you have a big time artist that teams up with a lesser known artist, but I love when that happens just because you get put on to somebody who is very, very dope. And in this case, I ended up spending about a half a day just kind of digging into Desi Raines' discography and got put onto a lot of new good music. So shout out to Trip Lee for tapping Desi to be a compliment to his voice as well on this song. He was very soulful yet very bright. Love this tone. So shout out to Desi Raines. Now, as we're wrapping up this recap countdown, stick around for my 1 final recap.
1. Recap.
So what are my overall views of this project? I hated it. I thought it was terrible and I never want to hear it again. Okay, guys, so you can definitely tell that I'm joking there. I thought this was a very triumphant return for Trip Lee after being kind of on hiatus for about 5 or 6 years. I thought it was not only a good return, but he also added in a new wrinkle, a new element, and doing his own production and teaming up with Juice Bangers, Enzo, 1995, and also Michelle. He did a very good job of just keeping true to his own craft and his own style, but also sprinkling some new elements in the ever-changing hip-hop landscape. So this is definitely not the end of Trip Lee. He has a whole lot more in store for us. A lot of people were thinking that him naming this project The End was the end of his career, but I think that this is more of a symbolic thing. There's chapters in our lives, and that's something that's very true to me. I really do feel like we have different chapters in our life when we go through different things, and God's writing this story. And a lot of times we tend to judge people based off of one chapter, and maybe that chapter may be a little less glamorous than where they're at now, and we want to hold people to those terrible chapters in their lives. But at the same time, God is writing a story, and he can bring us out of those dark times in our lives. I'm not saying that Trip is in any dark time of his life, because he's been doing a whole lot with pastoring and shepherding people, but just kind of speak to that element of this is not the end. And I kind of like the point that he made in naming this The End and actually putting a period on it, because this really closes the chapter, and kind of like the sky's the limit for where Trip is going to go next. It's kind of makes you think about the Stone video, where he's obviously going somewhere in the video. If you haven't seen the video yet, I'd encourage you to go to YouTube and check that out. But he's obviously going somewhere. He's looking at his watch, and then he's just kind of walking. He's on a bus or a train. And so I think that this was a little bit of a symbolic thing. So make sure you go to whatever streaming platform, wherever you go to buy your music, and go run up these numbers for Trip Lee's The End. You guys can also feel free to follow me on Twitter. I can be found at DJ_B_plus. It's always good to talk to you guys there. You can also feel free to hop down in the comment section below and let me know what your favorite songs were, what your favorite beats were, what your favorite tracks were, and what your favorite features were. I'll be looking forward to hopping down there and talking to you guys. Also, if you enjoyed this video and think you may be interested in more content just like this, make sure you come back and friend with the page. And if you're feeling really good, make sure you hit that red subscribe button. I would love to have you. And also feel free to give this video a thumbs up. Once again, I am B+, and until next time, peace in, confusion out, and be positive.